Hi everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Priyanka. I'm going to be the MC for the evening, or for the afternoon. And before I start, I just want to say thank you for everyone for coming and taking time out of your weekend to join us for this event. Before we invite some of our great speakers for this afternoon, I want to take some time to talk about tea. And for anyone who doesn't know what tea is about, it's the Telugu Entrepreneurs Association, and what tea is fostering is entrepreneurship. And so all of these speakers are going to come up here and talk about different ways to grow wealth and wealth creation. And tea was founded in 2010 right here in Dallas, Texas. And our goals have been the same for the past 6 years. We've always wanted to foster entrepreneurship, and our goals have actually expanded all over the United States. We have chapters from the West Coast to the East Coast. And now we're taking time to have these speakers to grow and foster more wealth creation and to give their expertise for you all. So first, we want Srinivas Reddy to say a few words about one of our guests.
Thank you, Priyanka. That was a good way of introduction. I just wanted to, first of all, thank you everybody. I just wanted to introduce or recognize one of our strongest supporter, highly successful entrepreneur, Al Bhakta. If you don't know him, it's a very good inspirational story. They started with nothing. I don't even know how to count today. I don't know what their numbers are, but last time when I counted 3 years ago, 200 plus restaurants. Genghis Grill, if you haven't eaten, I'm sure most of you tried Genghis Grill. It's a very good food. They are growing phenomenally. And he's been a great supporter of tea. He actually came and shared his story, how they started and what pains they went through. But one thing that I learned from him, never give up. Thank you, Al.
First speaker of the afternoon is Mr. Lalith Thota. He has a bachelor in engineering, master's in computer science, and he moved to Dallas and opened Mayuri Indian restaurant, which I'm sure many of you have been to before, and has been running it successfully for the past 10 years. But first we want Ms. Ratna Patnala to give him a gift. So Mr. Lalith Thota, please give him a round of applause.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank T for giving me the opportunity to speak this afternoon, and Srinivas Reddy, who's been supportive of me for almost a decade right now. The agenda that kind of, for me, it's like I talk about this pretty much every single day to most of my friends and customers who have specific questions of what to do, how to be successful in a restaurant. So I have about 20 minutes of time. And I'm going to really start briefly with who I am, just talk about who I am. And then the second, I'm going to talk about how I transitioned from an IT background into a restaurant background. And then generically talk about what it takes to start a restaurant. And all my throughout my conversation, right, it's all about Indian restaurants. My focus is about Indian restaurants. And I want to tailor all my views or my experiences towards the Indian restaurant, starting an Indian restaurant. So let me just get started off with who I am. Just like everyone else, undergrad in engineering, came to this country, did my master's computer science, and worked for corporate world for about 10 years. Worked at Cisco for about 10 years. And then one day I kind of like, literally one day, right? Literally one day it's like, what am I doing in life? Usually everyone is like so confident about who we are after working in a corporate world for about 7-8 years that you really want to sit and think, what am I doing in a cubicle? Or you really want to grow and be recognized, and you want to do so many things. But at that point of time, what happens in life is you have a lot of restriction. You'll be married, young kids, it's got a lot of obligations, parents back home. Probably you brought some kind of a real estate venture where you have to keep paying towards it. Everyone goes through this phase, right? I was in a similar phase, but then I decided that I should do something, right? I should do something where I don't have to report to someone. I should be my own boss. And at that point of time, I want to thank my wife who's here. She was my support. She said, hey, you know what? Do whatever you want to do. I'm going to support you. But she regrets it later because I don't spend too much time at home, but that's okay, I guess. So that's about me, right? The second, I want to talk about how I transitioned from being a IT guy. I don't want to use words like regular and all this stuff, right? I was very content with where I was in my career at that point of time. But, the bug in you, right? The bug in you always says, hey, you got to do something, you got to do something. And that's exactly why every one of us is here in this room as opposed to being in India, right? We really want to see what best we could do with what our parents have given us. With that thing, why Indian restaurant? When I was doing my master's, one of the first dollar I earned was working as a waiter at a restaurant. So I had a thing for the restaurant. The second thing was food, man. I mean, I'm from Hyderabad, so it's always about food and, biryanis and all. So it was always there in my mind. And then the third point is like, though everyone goes through the same phase, it ultimately boils down to getting an opportunity. It's all about getting an opportunity, seeing the opportunity and seizing the opportunity. And at that point, I want to use the word lucky. I kind of got lucky to get this opportunity to move to Dallas and start Mayuri. I got the opportunity, and then I had a decision to make one night. Should I leave everything that I was doing and just take over the restaurant or not? And at that point, as I said, with my wife's support, decided that I should go ahead and do it. And 11 years after that decision, I'm here, happy with the decision I have made. So that's my transition into the restaurant business. Now, the third point I want to talk about is the whole meeting about what it takes to start a restaurant, specifically Indian restaurant, and what it takes to run a restaurant. Right? These are the 2 points I'm going to talk about for the next 5-6 minutes. And then I'm going to talk about what is the future of Indian restaurants in this country, and then personally, what are we planning to do as a restaurant? And then I'll leave the floor for questions and answers and take it from there. My thing about if someone walks up to me, right? This happens pretty much almost every week or every 2 days. Customers, friends, they walk up to me, hey, Lalith, we want to do something similar to you. We want to do a restaurant. We want to do this. You got different people have different ideas. Like my buddy right here, he started Best Brains. That's an education institute, right? So everyone has this entrepreneurship within themselves, and they want to be, they want to take that risk and try to do something. Majority of us are successful because of our work ethics. Some of them, business is one of those things. I always say one thing about business. Business, unlike a job, is never smooth. Either it goes up or it goes down. So that's the basic thing about business. And now moving on to what it takes to start a business, right? Or a restaurant, Indian restaurant. The number one thing is passion, right? Compared to other businesses where it's more about investment. If you take any major, like you want to buy an office space or you want to put your money into an apartment complex, it's all about your gut feel that you want to invest that money and you'll be successful. But when it comes to restaurant, it's about passion. And along with passion, what happens is most of the time we just get carried away with passion because someone is successful or some concept is successful. The second point I want to emphasize is, along with passion, you have to be realistic. So if you were to take home 2 things today, is first, you need to have a passion. The second is you need to be realistic about what you want to do. So these are the 2 things. The rest falls in place, right? This takes you to the next level, right? You are passionate and then you're realistic. So what do you do next? You take a pen and paper and then you write, what do you want to do? A business plan. Business plan is how much money you got, how much money your friends are ready to invest in you. Then you go to SBA or you go to a bank, and there's so many options. Everything is available on the internet. And then the next speaker would talk about more about how do we get there, right? So the business plan, it's simple as taking a paper and pen, writing all your thoughts down. I want to do an Indian restaurant, and this is the money. With this money, I can do these. So that's a basic business plan. Now, once you're done with your business plan, there are 3 components that are crucial for any restaurant, especially and even Indian restaurants, right? The first thing I talk about always is food. The number one thing, pretty obvious, but the number one thing is food. The second is customer service. And the third one, according to me, is location. Majority of the time, if you really talk about a restaurant in this country, they always say location, location, location. I kind of tend to disagree on that. It's the food, the customer service, and the location. These three things are the key for success, right? It's a combination of these three. Now, you have all these three, and then you're passionate about it, and you're realistic, that's a success formula. That's my take, and I've been doing that for almost more than a decade. I've been successful. So now, let me go to the next level, right? The most easiest thing to do in this country, at least with this current scenario, is to start a restaurant. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is how most of the Indian restaurants get started. You have 3 friends, 4 friends who decide over a party that, hey, you know what? We got to do something on our own. They chip in money, 100,000 each, it's 400,000, go to SBA or go to a bank, get another couple of 100,000 loan, start a restaurant. That is the easiest part. They're all, they are realistic, they have a vision, they have a business plan. But the thing with what happens after that is the most crucial thing, because majority of them have a full-time job, and this would be something that they want to do part-time. That is one thing I kind of tend to disagree if you plan to do a restaurant on a part-time. At least for initial, say, 3 months or 4 months, you just take break. I would recommend anyone who's planning to get into restaurant business to do it full-time, at least for the initial 3-4 months. Then you know what happens day in, day out. What you see outside is so different than what happens inside in the back, right? You go to a restaurant on a Sunday afternoon, no matter what, I mean, any restaurant you walk in on a Sunday afternoon, it's super busy, or Saturday night. And then, you go home and you're just like, man, wish I was part of that, right? See, that's the motivation factor. But along with that, you should be dedicated to give that kind of time and energy. You should have that kind of energy to make sure that you can run that kind of restaurant. So again, bottom line, at least 3-4 months of your full-time work at the restaurant, that would give you a kickstart. And then you can definitely find most of them find a manager or a cousin who could run it for you, right? So that's the second thing. Challenges, right? Indian restaurants in this country, majority of restaurants, right? We are kind of dependent on the chef. See, that's where, if you look at regular mainstream cooking in this country, it's a formula-based cooking. You go to KFC, you go to McDonald's, you go to any of these major chains, it's a formula-based cooking. But when it comes to Indian restaurants or Pakistani restaurants or Sri Lankan restaurants or South Asian restaurants, most of the cooking is not formula-based. It ultimately boils down to your chef or a bunch of chefs who are in the background doing that. So what that means is your relationship with your chef, and that is a crucial point, and that kind of dominates your success rate. If you really look at most of the restaurants, not just in this city, but any other city, right? Initially, when they start off, everything is smooth. You get the best quality, best customer service, and then you see the quality kind of going down. The reason for that is the chef. And then after a few months, then you go back and hear, hey, you know what, the quality is back up. It's, again, because of the chef. It's nothing magical, right? So if you plan to start a restaurant, make sure you have a better control over the chef. In the sense, when I say control, you and the chef should be on the same page on what are the terms, how long, and these kind of stuff. That's very critical. So after this setup, make sure your chef. And the third point is the food. There's so many restaurants that offer different, they cater to different, like for example, the cuisines, right? So you really have to be careful on what your cuisine is. My recommendation is not to be specific, be more generic. So what that means is when we go to our restaurant, one of the things that we talk at Mayuri is a student should be able to come and eat our food. A couple should be able to bring a kid in stroller, park the stroller, have food. Or a doctor should be able to walk in with his business partner, have lunch or dinner. So we want to cater to a wider range of audience, right? That is where we are, right? So what that brings us to is the next topic about what are the types of restaurants within the Indian restaurants that you can get into. We personally think there are 3 types of restaurants, right? The first one is kind of, we call it when I say we at Mayuri, we always see, we look at the market, we really want to see how we can reinvent and kind of thing. So that's why I always use the word we. The number one type of restaurant is, we call it the high-end restaurant, where you go there, the emphasis is on service, the emphasis is on ambience, and your overall experience. So that's the top level kind of restaurant. The second, or the mid-level, is someone like Mayuri, where we have a decent food, decent customer service, and decent selection of food, where we cater to a wider range of audience. And then the third one is a self-serviced mom and pop, where everything is disposable. You walk in, you place an order, you pick up the order kind of thing. So you really have to, based on your budget, based on your location, based on what you want to do, you may want to choose one of these, one of these three types of restaurants. So that's like starting the restaurant, what you need to have, what type of restaurant, and then how you should be involved in the restaurant business. So using IT term, this is one thing I want to also share with you is, every day is kind of a challenge, right? Every career, every job, every day is a challenge. But in the restaurant business, I use the phrase, the buck stops at you. If you're in IT, if something doesn't work, you always say, hey, it's not my issue, it's a DBA issue, or it's a hardware issue, software issue. None of those, right? Here, the buck stops at you and you have to fix it. Or your restaurant is shut down, or you get bad reviews. So that's one of those things you have to be ready to fix it. So that's the comparison. Right? And again, the next comparison is the IT thing is your back end, your kitchen, your front end, your service, and your application layer, which is your customer, right, who comes in and takes. You have to make sure all these three coordinate, and that's when you're going to be successful. So that's my experience around. Now, I don't want to get into specifics of dollar values on what it takes to start a restaurant. I'll leave it in the question and answers if you have any specific questions, right? So that's my journey. And then finally, I want to talk about what is the future of Indian restaurant. If someone wants to start a restaurant, what is the future? And so realistically, in this country, there's a lot of potential of starting a restaurant. Even in Dallas, I still believe that there is space for any new restaurant to come in, as long as the three things that I talked about. You have to be realistic, you have to be passionate, and you need to have a business plan. Once you have those three, I'm pretty sure you can be successful. So that's my personal take, right? And the other trend that we are seeing is you have to watch out what's happening in the market. Everyone believes in themselves. That kind of gets a little out of hand once in a while, where, oh, if he can do it, I can do it. I would just recommend that's not a good approach. I don't want to say that. Please stay away from, if he can do it, I can do it, because there could be so many factors that we don't know what happens behind that he or she is successful. So please don't get into that mode, just because that guy can do it, I can do it kind of thing, right? So that's just my take on that. And finally, I just want to talk about what we are doing as a restaurant. So our future plans. So what we have done is, we have, for the last couple of years, we've been observing the market, so where we are, and ultimately we found out to ourselves is, we are no different than any other Indian restaurants in Dallas. So what we have done is, we invested about 3 years back, and we bought a piece of land right here in Irving, and we are actually building one of the biggest Indian restaurants in the country. So the construction has already started. Hopefully it should be ready in January, February timeframe of next year. So what we're doing is, our focus is just not the restaurant, we want to focus on the banquet hall, because this restaurant would be a combination of a couple of banquet halls, a space for restaurant. Along with that, we kind of made a list of about 15 things that when an average customer walks out of their home, what would they do? So we want to capture what all we want to do. It's more like, we kind of named it Khana Bazaar, where you go, it's not like a mall kind of thing, but it's just like, you get different options. So you just want to eat pan. I have a friend who just started this business called Pan Shots, and this is more like designer pans. So we want to just incorporate certain ideas and certain things. So we are working on that, and hopefully should be out sometime next year. So that's where we are right now as a restaurant. That's pretty much, unless I'm open for questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're actually going to have a panel for question and answers after everybody's done.